Hey, welcome back, everybody. In this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about PHP, and what I want to do is just kind of give you an overview in this particular episode of PHP, and then how to set it up on your computer. Right now, you can see that I have the Wikipedia article pulled up for PHP, and I would definitely go on to Wikipedia and read this if you're not familiar with what PHP is at all. But essentially what it is it's a scripting language that allows the web designer, which would be you in this case, to build dynamic web pages. And what does that mean? Well, if you think of something like a blog, for instance, which PHP was originally designed for, was a blogging application, you probably want to be able to create posts and not have to rewrite HTML every time you do it. So you'll notice that most blogs use a design framework, and then they put blog posts within that framework. So when you add a new blog posting, you don't have to redesign the HTML page every time. You can just store that blog information via a content management system into a database, and then basically what the web server will do all the work for you. So you would basically design an HTML template, and Wikipedia is produced like this. You can see that all the pages kind of have the same look to it, but then the information changes depending on what you request. And so what happens is the server actually starts doing its thing, and it serves up the HTML, and when it sees PHP code in there, it will go through and produce. It'll go get that content out of the database and then spit it out along with the HTML. So the PHP, all the magic happens on the server end of it, not on the browser end of it. So anyway, just a quick overview. It was PHP was originally written by Rasmus Lerdorf. Sorry, I mess that up every time. And it was originally designed as a set of CGI binaries, which basically CGIs were kind of an old school early scripting environment that's still used today. It's pretty strong. But PHP was a way to kind of develop that and make it more simple. It became an open source project, and it's still developed today, and it's currently on version 5.2.9. So anyway, that's, if you kind of go through here and read this whole article here, it'll give you everything and more you wanted to know about PHP. The original release date dating back to 1995, so it's really not that old. It's a little over 10 years old, and well, actually 14 years old. So anyway, this will give you just a basic overview of PHP. Now, in order for PHP to run, you must have PHP installed on your web server because it is a language, and we're going to talk about how to do that today. You have a couple options here. You could, do all your coding on your desktop and then upload everything via FTP to the server and run it there. But when you're really digging through a lot of code, that extra step adds a lot of time into it and becomes quite frustrating. So the other option you have is you can actually install PHP onto your computer, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. If you're a Mac user, you want to use an application called MAMP, M-A-M-P. Okay, and the website for this, we're going to come back to this in just a second, but you can see up here is www.mamp.info/en. Actually, you can just go to mamp.info and it'll send you over there. So if you're a Macintosh user, you would want to install MAMP, and I'm going to walk you through that in a minute since we're on a MAMP here. If you're a Windows user, I'm going to pull up another site here. You can use WAMP, W-A-M-P, and the URL to get there is wampserver.com/en. And both of these work very similar. I do work on Windows sometimes in production environment, and it's on my other computer. My laptop is a Mac here, and they essentially will work much the same. Basically, it's an application that you put on your computer, and it contains the MySQL database and PHP both, and in Windows case Apache also. And on the Mac side, a lot of these things, all but MySQL, are already in your system, and this is a way of adding MySQL and then being able to access those in Mac OS X. So anyway, that's essentially what you're dealing with on the Windows side. Let's look at the Mac side. Both these programs are free. There's a pro version of this where if you really are going to be getting busy with it, you can consider paying for. But for 90% of for 100% of your learning application, I would just get the free version, and you just go to download now, follow the instructions, and you're going to install this on your computer. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to spare you that process here. What you want to do is, let's open a new Finder window, and you're going to install this on your computer in your applications folder. So if I click on applications, I want to show you where this is. If I scroll all the way down to map, and this is where it's a little different than some applications, but you can see that there's a ton of folders in here, okay? And it kind of looks like a web server, if you've ever been onto the root level of a web server and see what that looks like. They do contain a dashboard widget here, so you're welcome to use that. I don't use it. You can see here's the application right here, right above it, map. And I need to warn you about one other thing in here. When you're developing, you can't just put files anywhere and expect them to work, okay? And we're going to talk about that in this episode of how you address files. What you want to do is there's an htdocs folder right here. You see that? I'm going to select that, and you can see that I have a bunch of stuff thrown in here, clients and personal websites and all kinds of things. And what I would do is I tend to keep this organized. I just have a folder for each website or client or project. And for instance, let's create a new one called tutorial EX, or tutorial_exercise EX. I'll just leave it at that. Keep it simple. And know that spaces can become a problem with this at times, so I would be careful about that because we're going to have to access this through the browser. So all of the files that I would create need to go into this folder, okay? And so basically, when you're working on your computer, just make sure that the files you need to reference are in that folder. Now, in order to get them to render, what I need to do is launch the MAMP application. And what it's going to do here is it's going to launch two things. It's going to launch the little interface, and it's going to pop up a web browser. Let's go back to the interface for a second. And basically what this does is this is a little control that allows you to start and stop the servers. And it's just telling me I've got green light on Apache, and I've got a green light for MySQL, so if I'm using the database, I can do that. I can open up preferences and do stuff like that, and I can quit, I can stop the servers, whatever I need to do. So it's just a small control panel there for that. Now, what it does is it actually, this open start page, when you launch MAMP, it will automatically open the start page, and here it is. And basically what this tells me is that I'm running, and I can do some info on this. I can select the start, I can select PHP info, and it's going to give me all of the information of the configuration of PHP that I've installed on my computer here that is running. And I'll show you another way you can get that in another episode here. But as you can see, I've got, this isn't important now because we're just beginning to learn this, but it's got all of the parameters. But basically, if you're trying to do stuff with graphics later on and you're not sure if you have a specific extension installed or something, this is where you would do that. Also included here is an application, just a little browser-based application called PHP MyAdmin. And this is a way to manage databases just through, it's through the browser. Essentially, MAMP has launched it, but anyway, it's a way to do it. Now, if I bookmark any of these pages and I try to go to them and I haven't launched the MAMP application, they won't work. Okay, so basically what this does is when you launch the application, it turns PHP on your computer, and the same holds true for WAMP on the Windows, WAMP on the Windows side of things. So anyway, so that's basically what you're dealing with. So I want you to see another thing here is as far as how to address things. And if you look up in the top in the URL. Location up here, you can see that we are at http://localhost and then colon and then it's port 88888 or 8888. I can't count today. And then there's some stuff beyond that. Now, if I want to access, now remember, let's go back over to the Finder for just a second. And remember, we're going to put stuff in this htdocs folder. So if MAMP is running on port 888, what you want to make sure is 4 8s. If I just kind of delete this last part and just launch this root directory, I'm going to get a root directory listing of those projects. And notice that I'm just basically browsing this directory right here. I'm just seeing it from the HTML. So then I can click on tutorial exercises, and then I can go through, and I don't have any files in here at the moment, but if I did, they would show up here, and then I can launch one of them and everything would work. So anyway, that's basically how you're going to set up MAMP on the Macintosh side, and it's very similar to setting it up on the Windows side. And just know that you need to have MAMP running in order to run PHP. If you try and do it without it, your PHP files will not run. So you need to have that installed. And just a quick review, once you install it, the location, remember, is in your applications folder. There's a folder called MAMP, and inside that is the application, but also this htdocs folder. And this is basically the folder that PHP is going to work with. If you have documents outside of that folder, MAMP won't see them and they will not run correctly. So that's essentially how you're going to set it up, and we're going to go into the next episode now, and I'm going to show you how to dig in and start coding some PHP. So we'll catch you then.